Hey everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered, where we get real about life's messiest situations, but we also talk about the beauty of following God. Today I'm so excited because we are having our first guest here, Sandy. So, everyone, welcome Sandy with me.
Hey.
So, me and Sandy initially connected because we both share a love for photography and God, and just I feel like Sandy is just so inspirational, and so that's why I really wanted to have her on my podcast and just share about her journey. So, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Sandy, how long has it been since we've been knowing each other?
I think it's been about 5 years.
Wow.
I found you on Instagram, reached out, wanted to know if you wanted to collaborate. I was fairly new to photography, so we just hit it off, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah. And also, we are both Southern. So, Sandy's from Texas.
Dallas.
And I'm from Louisiana, if you didn't know that. So we're just laughing the whole time we're together and we're just having a blast.
Yeah.
And I just love your sense of humor and just how much fun we can have together.
Me too.
So today we really wanted to come on here and speak to anyone out there who's really struggling with feeling maybe hesitant to step out in what God has called you to do, whether it is you feel like you're too old or too young, or you just feel like you don't know all the things and you have to be perfect to start. That's what we want to share today. So Sandy started photography in her 50s. And so how did that happen?
Well, I'd been a stay-at-home mom for many, many years. I did want to start photography when I was a young girl, but just didn't. I got married at a young age, had a child, divorced, then got married not long after that, had another baby. But I felt like God wanted me to be home with my children and my focus be on them.
Right.
Once my youngest daughter Aubrey graduated from high school, went off to college in 2015. It was around my birthday, August, when we were getting ready to take her to school, and I decided I'm going to buy a camera for myself. And went to Best Buy, bought a camera. I knew absolutely nothing about this camera. I know it had an automatic switch. So because I'm like, I don't know any of these dials or buttons. I just let me shoot automatic. But anyway, so it just really opened up a lot of my creative thoughts and feelings and desires. And of course, Instagram was becoming very popular and very big at the time. So
Yeah.
that was a lot of inspiration for me as well. But just through the next couple of years, I made friends with people on Instagram up in New York. I had family that lived there that I would go visit, and those friends kind of, helped me get off of automatic, shoot manual. YouTube was a huge help. I say I went to YouTube University, which I know that's an old thing, but it was just it was just trial and error, and then after 2 years, I started a company.
Wow.
And started doing photography.
So basically, you kind of just had to push past like the fears and the unknown.
Yeah.
How would you say, the saying that God's timing is perfect? How did that feel? You're like 50 and you're like now finally starting to do maybe something that God has been calling you to do, but it was just happened to be like in His timing. You raised your kids first, and then you're entering into this new season. It can be scary starting something new.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, I think I cried a lot trying to figure it out, because that's kind of how I am. I figure out something, or I trying to figure out something,
Right.
can't. I go away, I cry a little, I process it, and then I go back, and then okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
I've always had a lot of doubt in myself, but I just felt like God was saying, you're an empty nester. It's time to do something for yourself, and that can be pleasing to him, pleasing, to my family.
Yeah.
So it just, just started snowballing after that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I love what you had said, that you got to finally express the creativity that God had put inside you, because it
Yeah.
had been there since you were younger. And so it was like now you were finally like walking in that purpose that God had always put inside you.
Yeah.
I like that. And sometimes doing what God has called us to do, it's not easy because of our own self doubts, but also we might get criticism from other people. Did you kind of experience any of that?
Well, being a female in
Yeah.
photography is hard because there's not that many female photographers in the industry. And also my age. I was 52. By the time I started my own company, I was 54.
Wow.
So that was also it could be a barrier to try to get projects or people to accept you.
Yeah.
Because, what do you know? You're 54
Right.
years old. And, but I think that my creativity, my personality, my drive, my passion, overcame those barriers that people were starting to see me not just as a 54-year-old woman, but as Sandy, a creative photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel like your faith helped you along the journey of like overcoming like the self-doubt, maybe caring what people would think of you or the criticism? Do you feel like God kind of helped you or showed you how to navigate that?
I think so. I've never been one to care too much about what people think about me. I think that's just from my upbringing. It's
Right.
like you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't so much as fearful of what people are going to think. Mainly my family is who the people that I care about most, what they think about me. Anybody else, I don't care. You can tell me how you feel, or you can criticize me, and it might hurt my feelings. But God, He's given me a toughness and the ability to hear things and then just let it go.
Wow,
And let
that's
it go.
awesome.
Yeah.
And that's so important because I feel like no matter who you are, what age you are, what you're doing, you're always gonna have people criticizing you. And so it's kind of like the water rolling off of a duck's back.
Yeah.
That saying, how you just have to kind of not let it stop you from doing what God has called you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And expressing yourself and walking in that purpose.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because when I first started photography, I was mainly focused on landscape or in cityscape. And then a girl that I met, her name was Amy in New York, she loved to do portraits, and she was a fairly new photographer. So she was reaching out to all of these models and people there, and it really even inspired me even more to work with people, because in cityscape and landscape, you're not communicating, you're not talking, you're just taking a beautiful picture. But for me, it was great to be able to communicate with somebody, to share my talent, to make them see how beautiful they are.
Oh, wow.
Because I wanted people to see themselves as the world sees them. And that's to capture memories for people too.
Yeah.
That you don't get back. So that was just being able to relate and talk to other people and build relationships, because there's very few people that I've taken pictures of that I don't walk away feeling like they're my friend. There was some sort of connection there.
Right. So it wasn't just really about photography, but it was about like having that moment with someone to connect and encourage them, and for them to really see themselves the way that God sees them ultimately. And it's like you're just being that light and that love to them.
Yeah.
And you're doing it through photography. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a very good way to put it.
I feel like, that sometimes people overcomplicate just sharing God with people, how it can be so simple, and you don't have to be on a pulpit or on a podcast even, that you can just be doing your ordinary job and use that as a place to share God's love with someone, encourage someone. And I love that you've done that.
Yeah, I mean, and photography, I mean, to be honest too, can pull you away from God too, because especially for me with the popularity,
Now we're getting deep.
I know. Well, sorry.
No, let's go there.
Yeah.
This is unfiltered.
This
so.
is unfiltered. My face is not unfiltered, but I mean unfiltered. Anyway, I got caught up in it. I got caught up in people that I'm Sandy Wyndham, not Sandy Wyndham, a wife, a mom, a grandmother. Like, it was just me. Where my whole life I gave myself to my family, which is what I wanted to do, and be with them and be supportive and loving. But then when all of this, what am I trying to say? All of this notoriety, I guess. Or,
yeah, like almost like you felt like you were on a shelf, and then now people were starting to see you.
Yeah, and so it was overwhelming. It's kind of like somebody that loses weight, like loses 100 pounds, and then everybody's like, "Oh, you look good. Oh, you look good." And then they're like, "Oh, I do look good." And then
they can be tempted to like change.
Yes, and they
the personality.
they start to change, and they think they're something different. And I think that kind of got me into a cycle that way, because I was doing a lot of really cool things, traveling.
You're just a really good photographer.
Yeah.
So talented.
Thank you.
You know.
But now I feel like in the last couple of years, and my faith never wavered during that time. I mean, anybody that you would meet anywhere would know that I'm a Christian and that I love Jesus. So there was never me not wanting to tell people.
Right.
But I'd have to say, it just kind of, I pulled back a little unintentionally. But now I've worked my way back to where I'm happy with my relationship with God now. I feel I don't have those same desires or feelings that I did before. I just want to create.
Yeah.
And bring glory to God through it.
It's interesting how, like, even God, He gives us these gifts and these talents, and the enemy, he tries to come in and he tries to get our identity to be in that thing. Yeah. And then if we, take the bait, it can lead us a little bit away from God. Yeah. But I think it's amazing, because that's what the journey is about, is that you came back full circle and you had the awareness to see, like, okay, like, I wasn't getting any attention. I was a stay-at-home mom. But then I became popular and I got really talented and I grew in my skills, and then it kind of became almost like unhealthy in a way. And then God kind of led you back to, like, hey, I've always called you to do this, but I just don't want you to find your full identity in it. Yeah. And it's hard to navigate that, because like even me with, I've shared at the beginning of my podcast that I kind of did the same thing with modeling and like photography, that I became so obsessed with just the popularity of it instead of like living truly for God. I was just, for me, I've always kind of struggled with caring what people think of me. So I kind of became obsessed with just getting validation from people. And that was just not healthy, and it led me to not a good place. So what is something else that you would leave with people today, unfiltered, of just maybe they feel that God has called them to do something, but they're really struggling to step out in faith and trust God to do that calling?
I mean, you just have to do it. You just have to pray about it.
Just do it.
Just do it. And it's like, I mean, it's crazy to think that I'm in this place right now in my life. But I just, and there's a lot of things that I'll do just to do, because like wanting to do.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to do it. But you have to pray about it. Make sure that this is what God's will is for you.
That's so important to pray about it, because some people just want to do all kind of things, but they haven't really asked God about
Yeah,
it.
it's like, is this what God wants me to
Yeah.
do right now? And even as I've brought my way back to uh, a deeper relationship with God, I still ask Him to this day, is this still what I want to do? You know, is this, I mean, photography is, I mean, I love it. I love it, and He's telling me to do it, but to do it differently, to find other ways of doing the photography. So, um, you know,
That's so good.
yeah, it's you know, He's showing me different avenues to take with photography, and also avenues to maybe supplement my photography as well with. I started real estate photography.
Yeah.
I do the Matterport 3D virtual tours
Which is really cool.
for all you agents out there. Give
Hit
me a
up
call.
Sandy.
So I give a tour, and then I give you photos. So it's all good. But so
You're
that's
always growing.
it's always, you have to always be growing. And AI is out there now.
I know.
So you're trying to
Compete with robots.
yeah, compete with robots, but also trying to use it to where you're not going away from your talent, but just maybe adding a little bit to it. But I just say people they just need to do it, you know, but just make God the center of it.
Yeah.
God has to be the center of it.
That's so true. So important.
And it doesn't have to be that you're gonna become popular on Instagram
Yeah.
or get to travel or be on a magazine or whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be something, you know, that's part of your community, you know, or your family, or it could. There's a lot of ways that you can step out and it be something fulfilling and something you've always wanted to do.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I love that. And even for me, you know, starting this podcast was so scary for me because I know that God had been calling me for years to start this podcast, but I had all these doubts about myself. I had, you know, oh God, I'm not a good enough speaker. I'm like Moses, I stuttered. It's like, and then I would hear God tell me though, like, that's why I want to call you, because you know, and then I would just have these doubts of like, oh, I don't know the audio. I had all these excuses, and it really came down to a lack of trusting God.
Yeah.
And so I finally just did it. It's like you said, you just have to start.
Just do it. Yeah.
I did not know nothing about audio. I still struggle with speaking, but I'm pushing past that fear.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's trusting God. So whenever you start, and you don't have all the answers, you're not perfect, you know, you're starting though trusting that God's gonna meet you there. So literally someone that I was working with out of studio that I met, Connor, he taught me audio. And it's so funny, I can now say my first podcast, you know, the audio was only playing out of one speaker.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But you know what I rest in was that my heart was in the right place, that God told me to do this. I was doing it. My podcast was called Unfiltered. So it's about being messy, not having it all figured out.
Yeah.
And so even my first one, it was messy. It was literally not right. Like, it was playing out of one speaker. So I just look back at that and I kind of laugh because it's like God just showing me, like, you don't have to be perfect.
No.
You just have to show up.
Yeah.
And for me also, I think it's about when God calls you to do something, you have to think about your purpose for doing it and allow that to drive you instead of the fear.
Yeah.
So if I think on the fear, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't speak, I don't know all the answers, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
But if I think on the purpose, which for me, this podcast, the purpose is for people to feel not alone, for people to relate, and also just to share the love of God with people, to share God with people. So like that is my purpose and that's what drives me. So then the motivation comes because I don't let the fear drive me.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I'm super proud of you.
Aw, thank you,
because I've
Sandy.
seen you grown since in the 5 years, how much you've grown. And even in your faith, I've seen you grown. You're smart, you're talented, you are a go-getter, you don't
Thank
take
you.
no for an answer. So you are an inspiration to a lot of people.
That means so much.
But you're an inspiration to me as well.
Aww.
So
And you inspire me, and you helped me so much because I also do photography. I mean, I don't do it on your level, but you've taught me so much about lighting and Photoshop and all these different things.
Yeah.
And I love how you've always been a friend that never like a competition, but like taking me under your wing, showing me. And I feel like even that shows the love of God and just trusting God, knowing that you can help other people out on their journey, whether that's photography or me now helping someone with their podcast.
Yeah.
And just knowing it doesn't take away from me and trusting that God's going to bring me the clients for me.
Well, I mean, I wanted to be able to do that because people did that for me.
Yeah.
They came forward and said, "Oh, here, let me show you how to do that, Sandy." Or I could ask questions, and they'll like, "Okay, well, this is how I learned how to do it, and this is the way I do it." And and it's been, so I'm just like paying it forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that just reminds me too why community is so important because, that's why God wants us to be in community because yes, he's called us to certain gifts and talents, but it's like that community where we help one another grow.
Yeah.
In our gifts and our talents and our faith that, me and you, we share even just so much similarities when we were going through divorce. And some of the trauma that we both went through was very similar and how we were able to like really understand one another.
Absolutely.
And that we didn't just grow together in our gifts and our talents, but also like in our faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a deeper friendship.
Yeah.
Also. I'm really her Florida mom.
Yes.
Just in case.
She really is. Like, honestly, I always tell Sandy, like, you're just the best friend and, like, a mom. And, like, you're just so inspiring to me.
Yeah. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to do. I want to help people, love people, and especially you.
Oh, you're doing a good job at it.
Thanks.
So, is there anything else that you would want to leave our guests with about being unfiltered?
Yeah, I've always been unfiltered.
Well, you're Southern, so.
I'm Southern.
Sometimes we need a filter.
Yeah, I need a filter most of the time. I've gotten, the older I've gotten, because I'm 61 now, so that's how long it's been. 9 years. I've been almost 10 years been working at this profession, but yeah, I'm always unfiltered. I tell people how I feel, where I'm at. I just think it's important, but you have to do it with grace and love and kindness.
And I think that's why people feel so connected to you, because that's why I felt so connected to you, was just that you were so real. Like, I find sometimes that's hard to come by these days.
It is.
And I just really appreciated that. And I felt instantly connected to you because of that, like, realness you had.
Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much. And you can find me on...
Yes, your Instagram. Tell us.
Sandy Wyndham Photography.
And we'll tag you too.
Yeah, tag me, but and I'm also at sandy.wyndham. That's more my editorial creative, but the Sandy Wyndham Photography is more
like your personal.
Families. No, it's still my business. Okay. But it's the families, maternity, real estate, just
a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything there, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
I love.
We don't like to stay in a box.
No, don't like to stay in a box. You got to keep it, and it's good for the brain.
Yes, that's true.
Learning new things.
Yes,
so
I love that.
So if you have any questions about photography,
reach out to Sandy.
Yeah, don't hesitate to call me. But but thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And so anyone just out there listening, maybe you feel that God has called you to do something. Maybe it's photography. Maybe it's starting a new hobby, new career path. Or maybe it's just starting a Bible study in your community. Whatever that is, I hope that me and Sandy's conversation inspires you that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are.
No, it doesn't.
That God can use you right where you are right now, and you just have to start. So thank you again for joining us. We hope that this message inspires your faith and that you continue to grow closer to God and in community. And until next time.
Bye.